You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode I'm chatting with an Irish TCR racing driver and finalist of MI Young Driver of the Year. A true family affair, this week's guest grew up surrounded by motorsports. Taking advantage of the go-karts they had in the garage, he quickly fell in love and worked hard to take things to the next level. Being nominated for Young Driver of the Year opened doors for him, and his time in single-seaters took him from Formula Vee all the way to Asia to compete with Formula 4 and test a Formula 3 car. Now, trying his hand at tour car racing, he is battling his way through the championship with his eyes firmly locked on the top spot. Sharing his experiences so far, here's what it's like to be Max Hart.
I'm really excited to, dive a bit deeper into your story. So if you wouldn't mind, just to kick everything off, I kind of like to get to know you a little bit more and let everyone else get to know you a little bit more by talking a bit about what it was like for you growing up. I know you're from Baltinglass, I think?
Baltinglass in Wicklow, yeah.
So what was it like growing up there, and how did you mentioned that you had motorsport in your family a little bit, so can you tell me a bit more about what attracted you to motorsport and how that integrated into you growing up in Baltinglass?
Yeah, so I suppose like you see pictures on the wall of your family and like them doing motorsport stuff. So like my granddad, I would see pictures of him racing and things like that. I wasn't around when he was racing, so I only got to see pictures and things like that. And my uncle, he was heavily involved in racing as well. And my dad and my mom's side of the family is heavily involved as well. So like just kind of seeing that, and then we always had these go-karts in the shed, and my oldest brother Ross, he would get to go out in them because he was old enough. And then kind of when we started kind of hitting the age of 8, we got to kind of see more of these, because they're pretty dangerous things, like at such a young age, like. So we got to see more of this stuff, and then we'd set up like little tracks around the house, and we'd go up around the house and we'd see who get the quickest times. And then one day my dad brought us to a track, and then that's kind of where we started in the go-karts then. And slowly then we moved up, and then I stopped after 12 because we couldn't afford it because we were going through the recession then. And then I think when I was 14, I bought a buggy then. I saved up and I bought a buggy, and then we used to just rip around the field and that, and we used to just tear the place up in it. So eventually then I sold that, and then I had just enough amount of money for a deposit for a test day. So then we went to the test day with Leastone Racing, who are based in Kildare. And Paul Heavey there, he brought us up, and he basically taught me everything I know for car racing. And I suppose that's where it all started off. I raced in Formula Vee then for a year and a half, and I won the C Championship there, which took me over to England then last year, and or 2 years ago actually, and 3 years ago actually, yeah. The end of I think it was November. We went over to Brands Hatch, and unfortunately we didn't have any testing, so it was all new to me. It was in the Leastone 1000 in a single seater that weighs 380 kg, so like it's really fast because it's really light as well. And we finished second over there, which was a bit of a surprise, but we were super happy with that anyway. And then that kind of set us up for the season after that, which we were going to race that car for the whole season, which we did. We ended up finishing second in the championship, which was pretty good for our first year. And then I went to Asia then at the end of that year. We raced the F4 over there. And then I got to test an F3 car as well. And then this year then we had plans to do like F3 and things like that, but then that all fell through. Then we've raced TCR in the UK now.
That's mad. You've had quite the few years. It sounds like it all happened pretty fast for you.
Yeah.
But can you take me a little bit back to when I guess you decided that you wanted to take this seriously?
Yeah, I suppose it was probably the first time that I did that test up in Kirkstown when I was probably 15. Like through karts, you always have that ambition or that dream, but when it kind of seemed like it could become a reality then as soon as we kind of started testing the single seaters. And when you get a pretty good taste of it, or you're doing well, like you start to see like what could happen, what's in the future, or what's like possible that you could do. And I suppose Formula Vee then getting wins, and that was like I was never good at like Gaelic or football or soccer or anything like that. So when I found something I was good at, I just like held on to it, and then I just you put 100% into it all the time, and yeah, that's where I suppose I first kind of had it.
And for anyone that doesn't know that much about motorsport, maybe only knows a little bit about Formula One because of, you know, the glamour of it and all, and or the Netflix series. I don't know if you watched that. But for anyone that doesn't know, what would you say the main difference is between Formula V and Formula One?
Well, it's actually the same engine size. So Formula V is 1.6, and so is Formula One, which is crazy. But like in terms of the cars, they would be a lot slower, like so much slower. And downforce as well. They have next to no downforce. So, and you wouldn't have like power steering or anything like that. So it's kind of slow racing, but it's when you're driving them cars like this on the edge, and to be up the front, you have to always be on the edge. So you're always fighting with these cars because you're trying to get the most out of it every time to get that little bit over your competitors. So that's kind of where the difference, there would be a really big difference from Formula V to Formula One. Or even from Formula V to the likes of Formula 4 or Formula 3 is a pretty big difference as well.
I think most people would know anyways that you need people to back you to take part in this sport because it is so expensive. So you started your career, you said, with that first test. And then when did you start to notice, or when did you approach people to sponsor you, or how did the whole thing kick off?
I suppose kind of after my first years in Formula V. Formula V is it's expensive, but it's affordable in the way it is. It's probably the cheapest single seater you can race. But then the year after, when we started getting quite a lot more serious with the 1000, because it's so much quicker, and like people started noticing me kind of then. So that's when we started kind of chasing sponsors and things like that. And yeah, that's kind of where we needed backing if we wanted to move forward to the likes of Asia and things like that.
And tell me about Asia. That sounds insane that you went over to race there. What was that like?
Yeah, so we last year we got nominated for Young Driver of the Year, and then we made it to the finals. And then I think it was maybe the week before to find out who would win it. We got this call and we got this opportunity then to go over to Asia. And then I think it was on the Tuesday we had the finals, and we literally left Tuesday evening right after, and we went straight over to Asia. And unfortunately we didn't win Young Driver of the Year, but that's a different story. And then yeah, we headed over to Asia, and it was all new for me. I'd never driven these cars, and I had no testing either. And then yeah, we were straight in. We got no practice. We were straight into qualifying, so we were trying to learn straight away. The car, like the track as well, it's an XF1 track, and it's only like recently X, so it's a pretty cool track. And as well with the weather over there, it nearly rains every single day, and so we didn't know how it would be. So our qualifying was dry and our race one was dry, and then we had to there was quite a wait till the next 3 races, and then it was just rain for nearly all of them, and it was difficult. Like there was so much learning. Like it was difficult, it was challenging, but it was really fun. We ended up coming away with a 3rd place, which was really good against like such an international grid of drivers as well.
What country was it?
Malaysia.
Ah, okay. Within that as well, you spoke a little bit about how you do travel to all these different countries to race. What was the first foreign race you took part in?
I suppose in England it would have been, yeah, we went to Brands Hatch, which is my favourite circuit now, because it's so, you have to be really brave around the Grand Prix track. So that's what I like about it. You have to have no fear at all. So yeah, Brands would have been our first one in England. That's the first one we went abroad to.
And touching on that fear that you have to be I think it goes without saying, you have to be fearless to drive these crazy fast cars around tracks. But do you ever get nervous before races, or do you ever worry that something might happen?
Yeah, I definitely get nervous, yeah, before a race. Like you always want to do your best, and you want to make sure you do your best, and like it's not that you think you're going to crash, you just have the thought that something might go wrong. That's all just before the race. I think that's kind of part of the nerves and the build up to it. But once you get kind of in the car, well, for me anyway, once I get like in the car and I have my helmet on, like that's when I'm totally focused then. I just forget everything. And then I know that I have a task in front of me that I need to do, and I need to do well, I suppose.
So you were doing all of this crazy stuff while you were in school as well. which I think is so incredible because just from the limited knowledge I have of the industry, a lot of people kind of leave school behind at around 16 or whenever to fully focus on this. So how did you go about balancing schoolwork with traveling, with racing?
I suppose I kind of wanted to leave school, but my parents, they wouldn't let me, which is totally right now. Like, I can see why now. But I did TY, and that was kind of the year that I wasn't really in school much. I was kind of focusing on racing a lot. And then I suppose through fifth year was kind of the same as well. I was still in school quite a lot, but I was out of school as well with racing. Like, you would leave on a Wednesday to go to England, and then you'd come back Monday morning, like on the ferry if we were racing in England. And that's so you wouldn't be able, you could go to school on Monday, but you just wouldn't be able to, learn anything. You'd be so shattered. Like, so I suppose it's tough to balance both of them, and as well with training as well. You have to train, so you have late nights as well and things like that. But look, I made it through.
You mentioned as well there, Young Driver of the Year, which you were nominated for, and you made the final of that. So can you take me back to that time and just talk me through the whole experience of that time?
So I actually remember I was in school and my phone was ringing and I could feel it buzzing. You're supposed to have them off in school, but I didn't have my phone off this time. I saw the number and I could see it was a Dublin number, but I think I just answered it and hung up straight away. I don't know why. And then I got an email or something, and I just quickly looked through it. I remember just giving it a quick little read, and then I just remember seeing that I'd been nominated for Young Driver of the Year, and then I was just so happy. Like, the feeling was really, really good, and I was just super excited. And then I remember ringing my mom just after class, just as I was walking down the hall, and I think it was break time, and I answered the phone, and my mom was crying. I was like, "What?" I was like, "What did I do?" But they rang her then after me. She was just crying. She was just with happiness for me, because we had kind of set this at the start of the year. Like, we had a few goals. We wanted to like do top 3 in the championship. We wanted to be nominated for Young Driver of the Year. And there was one other I can't remember. I always set 3 goals at the start of the year, just what I want to achieve. And yeah, so she was crying, and then I just I think it might have been the last class, and then I went home, and I was just so happy in the car home. I drive, so I was driving home from school, and I just remember being so happy. And then we were waiting. We had to go for interviews then, so we went for interviews to see if you make the final 3. And the interviews, I was so nervous because I hadn't done anything like this before. But I went in, and well, the interview, it must have gone all right. I didn't think it went too well, but it gone all right. Because I remember, I think it was maybe 2 days later or something, I was working and I was doing a delivery, and I was coming back through Blessington, and I just remember seeing it on Facebook actually, and I just was like screaming with happiness. I was so happy. Like, even think of it now, it just makes me happy that I made the top 3. And then like, I was super happy to make the top 3 anyway. A win would have been a really big bonus. And yeah, then we had to wait quite a bit till the actual ceremony where we find out who won. So it was me, James Rowe Jr., who was the winner, and William Kellett, who's another guy from Meath, who's a good mate of mine as well. So the 3 of us were in the final, and yeah, James Rowe won it, and he's racing over in America now in F3.
What happened for you after that? How did it impact your career going forward?
Well, I think I had a few radio interviews, and I was in the newspaper quite a lot and on social media, so I got a lot of attention kind of that way. I think when I got nominated, there's an Irish guy who runs the championship over in Asia, and I think he might have saw it, and that's when he contacted us. And so I suppose it opened the doors for me to go to Asia and things like that, and more people kind of saw me then, and that's why I think this drive kind of helped with getting nominated. It looks kind of good on a CV as well if you're trying to get sponsors and things like that. So it's helped me out anyway.
And you mentioned that before when we were talking that you swapped from single seater to, I can't remember what you called it now, but tin top. Yeah. So which one of those do you prefer?
I get this question so often kind of recently, because it's new that the changeover, but like you can't compare them. They're totally different. Driving wise, they're totally different. Like, I'm used to being in the middle of the car, and like just it's open wheel. It's totally different. You can't compare them. Like, and then with the saloon car, it's left hand drive. You have paddles, your mirrors, you have a main mirror as well, which is quite weird for me. And the mirrors are quite small as well. Like you're looking over to this one, and visibility isn't too good in them either. Well, it's not good in either of them, but it's just totally different. They handle totally different. They're different to drive, but I do enjoy this car a lot.
Why did it change over?
After kind of this corona all came about, we didn't know where we were standing, kind of, or what to even do. And then this opportunity, it just came about, and we just decided, why not take the chance? Like this, it's an opportunity. If we don't take it, somebody else will, and we could lose out on something big here. So we took it, and it's more affordable as well towards the top, like Formula One. If you want to go to Formula One, you need a lot of money and a lot of backing. Where it's with single seaters, it's quite a lot less cheaper to make it to the top.
And so what is your, I guess, your dream track to race on? And then what are your goals for the future? Where would you like to see yourself?
I have quite a lot of tracks that I'd like to drive on. And I've driven on two of them kind of already. Brands Hatch, like you look at old videos around there, and like it's a pretty good track. Like Silverstone Grand Prix, the Maggots and Beckett's, that sequence of corners, that's pretty cool to do in a single seater. So I got to do that one. And then I suppose Spa, I think every racing driver, Spa in Belgium, it's a track that I would really like to do as well. As a driver, I suppose you want to experience the G-forces kind of going up there, and the grip as well would be pretty cool. And I suppose the danger of it as well, like I would say I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, and that would give you a lot of adrenaline.
Yeah, I guess I'd say you kind of have to be an adrenaline junkie to do what you do. So yeah. I guess that makes sense. And if you had to give one career high and one career low, what would they be?
The career highs, they would be kind of my first win in Castlecoombe last year in the Leastone 1000. That was pretty special. I was so happy. I see we were dicing like through the whole race. Me and Dean Warren, I think he was the championship leader at the time, and I think it was the second last corner where I got the lead, and that was a pretty special one. I can picture it in my head coming across the line and seeing my dad and team boss Paul Heavey over. They were nearly on the grid. They were that far out. They were like proper like shaking. Like I brought a few tears to my eye on that cool down lap with joy. And then career low, like when things don't go right for you in the car, like we've had a few mechanical faults throughout the years, and I hate when I don't finish. Like, and just sometimes I've had a really good qualifying that weekend as well. Like I'm not one to cry, but I did cry. I was so angry. I think it was the second race of the weekend, and it was the first race of the weekend. I qualified second, so I was on the front row, and I took off, and we had a mechanical fault, unfortunately. But I just remember I was so excited for this race, and I was buzzed. Like our pace was really good. Like that could have been our first win, and we didn't make it to the first corner. I just remember getting out of the car and just getting behind the barrier where nobody could see me, and just going on my knees and putting my helmet in my hands, and just not bawling or anything. Just you let out a few tears. You're just disappointed. You're angry. You have all these different emotions going through, and that's probably a career low that weekend. So, and that's why it's probably a career high that weekend as well.
Yeah, because I'd say you put so much work into just one weekend, and then especially when it's no fault of your own, it must be pretty difficult to deal with.
At the time, yeah, but you have to get over these things. You have to look forward to the next race. You have to be fully focused. You can't be thinking like, oh, will this happen again? Or like, oh, my race is ruined or something like that. You know, you have to be fully focused for the next race, and you have to be ready for it.
So I know that you can't predict the future, and obviously we're living in crazy uncertain times at the moment. But do you have a few plans as to what you're going to do with your career over the next few years?
We're not too sure on exactly, but we want to go to the top. This round it's cut short because of coronavirus, so there's only 3 more weekends, so it's a four weekend race. So our next one is in 3 weeks, 2 weeks. After this weekend, it's 2 weeks, and that's in Silverstone. Like if we win it, that would be amazing. We're second in the championship after the first round, so we are 17 points behind, which it would be easy to win if the leader, let's say he had a problem at DNF, that would put us straight to the front if we finish. So I'm not hoping for that. I don't wish that upon anyone, but like it would be good to win this, and I think that it would open doors as well. And I suppose GT racing, that interests me a lot, like Ferraris and plans and things like that. That's kind of where I want to go. If not, British touring cars is pretty big over in England, and yeah, it looks real fun. I feel I'm kind of an aggressive driver.
Okay.
And if you watch some videos of that, it seems like you have to have a bit of aggression for it and things like that.
I think for anyone listening and people that have followed your career, it's safe to say you've definitely experienced success along the way, and you're still so young, so there's so much time for you to achieve everything that you want to achieve. But I'd be curious to know if you did have a personal definition of what success would look like for you.
When I go out in a race car, I always want to win, and if I can get into anything that I can get into and I can win in it, that would be success for me. And happiness as well. If I can be happy for my whole life, that would be success for me, to be honest. Or make other people happy as well.
And then I do just have one more question for you, and I'm going to let you get on with your evening. If I put your 10-year-old self in front of you today, I know it wasn't that long ago since you were 10, but if you could give that 10-year-old self one piece of advice, having been through the crazy few years you've been through in your career and then also just in life in general, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give that 10-year-old self moving forward?
That's a really good question. I suppose, like, just don't think things are impossible, I suppose, because when I was like 15 and things like that, we didn't think that we would go to Asia or things like that. And all these little things, they just come around, and I would tell myself, if there's an opportunity there, to definitely take it, because opportunities, they can open doors and things like that. So I would definitely, nothing's impossible, and if there's an opportunity there, take it.
I like that. That's good pieces of advice, and you've definitely done that so far and it's paid off. So yeah, it'll be cool to see what you do in the future. I just want to say thanks so much for giving up your evening to chat to me. It's been so interesting to hear about your world.
Thanks so much for having me on as well.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Max and his racing career, visit the links in the show notes provided. I'll be back on Thursday with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.